Malik entered the school gates with quiet steps, holding his backpack close to his shoulder. He wasn't new to moving schools, but every time he walked into a new place, he hoped this one would be different. He hoped for a quiet year, a peaceful year, a year where people minded their own business. Malik wasn't the type to seek attention. He never talked loudly, never tried to show off, and never liked being the center of anything. He simply wanted to study, stay out of trouble, and make his parents proud. But to everyone else watching him walk through the hallway on that first morning, he was just another face, another kid who didn't stand out. He entered his first class and sat in the last row, choosing a seat near the window. That was his favorite place. It made him feel calm. It made him feel invisible in a world where he sometimes didn't want to be seen. A few students looked at him briefly, then looked away. Nobody smiled. Nobody said hello. They were too busy talking to their friends, laughing loudly, or scrolling through their phones. Malik didn't mind. He liked quiet places. He liked blending into the background. But being invisible was a dangerous place too, because the wrong people often took advantage of the quiet ones. Between classes, he moved silently through the hallways. He watched other kids in groups, joking and teasing each other. He wasn't jealous. He just didn't fit into those loud circles. Malik was thoughtful, gentle, and observant. He noticed everything: the kid sitting alone in the library, the teacher who looked tired, the janitor who cleaned the same spot twice because students kept spilling snacks. Malik understood people better than they understood him. But the bullies noticed him too. Not because he did something wrong, not because he said something rude, but simply because he wasn't like them. Malik's quiet behavior bothered them. His calm face made them curious. They wondered why he didn't laugh loudly like others or try to impress anyone. In their eyes, silence looked like weakness. And weakness to them looked like opportunity. It started with small things. A shove in the hallway. A sarcastic comment thrown over the shoulder. Whispering loudly when he walked by. Malik heard everything, but he pretended not to. He didn't want problems. He had learned from his father that not every fight needed to be fought, that strength sometimes meant walking away. So he walked away every time. But walking away did not make them stop. It only made them bolder. One day at his locker, Malik carefully arranged his books. He kept everything tidy. His notebooks were clean, his pencil box organized, his schedule taped neatly to the inside of his locker door. He liked order. It helped him think clearly. But while he was focused on organizing, a shadow crept behind him. Malik took a deep breath. He already knew who it was even before he turned around. 3 boys stood behind him, all wearing that same smirk bullies always wore, the smirk that said they enjoyed making others uncomfortable. The tallest one leaned against the locker next to Malik's and said, "Hey new kid, why are you always so quiet? Cat got your tongue?" His friends laughed as if it was the funniest thing in the world. Malik closed his locker slowly and replied softly, "I don't want any trouble." His voice was calm, not scared, but the boys took it as fear anyway. The second boy stepped closer. "We didn't ask what you want. We're asking why you act like you're better than everyone." Malik blinked. "I don't think that at all." But the more calmly he spoke, the more irritated they became. They wanted a reaction. They wanted fear, anger, anything. But Malik gave them nothing. He simply picked up his bag and walked away, leaving them annoyed and confused. As he walked down the hallway, he heard them whisper behind him. "Who does he think he is? He's weird. He won't last long here." Malik didn't look back. He had learned long ago that turning around only made things worse. Instead, he walked to his next class, pretending everything was normal. But inside he felt a small heaviness. He didn't want to draw attention. He didn't want people talking about him. He wanted to disappear into his books and finish the year quietly. But life doesn't always give what we want. The teachers didn't pay attention to Malik either. They saw a quiet black kid who didn't cause trouble, didn't speak out, didn't create noise. To them, he blended into the background. They didn't see his sharp mind, his artistic skills, his love for history, or the way he memorized math formulas like poetry. They didn't see his kindness or how he helped a younger student pick up spilled papers without being asked. They didn't notice the maturity in his eyes or the discipline in his movements. But someone else noticed. A girl in his science class watched him from across the room. She saw how he always raised his hand with the right answer but lowered it when louder students spoke first. She saw the way he helped others quietly. She saw his patience. And she saw how the bullies watched him too closely. She had a bad feeling, but she didn't know how to help him yet. Malik gathered his books at the end of the day and stepped outside into the crisp air. He took a deep breath, letting the wind cool his thoughts. He hoped tomorrow would be easier. He hoped the bullies would get bored and leave him alone. He hoped the world would let quiet boys like him just live in peace. But deep down he knew things were only beginning. Because Malik was not the weak kid the bullies thought he was. He had a strength they had never seen. And soon they were going to learn exactly who they messed with. Malik woke up the next morning hoping the day would be different, hoping yesterday had been nothing more than curiosity from the bullies. He told himself they would lose interest and move on to someone else. That's what usually happened in other schools. Bullies liked easy targets, not quiet boys who didn't react. But somewhere in his chest, he felt a small warning that today would not be the peaceful day he hoped for. He walked through the front doors with his usual calm stride. The halls were noisy, filled with laughter, footsteps, and locker doors slamming. Malik blended into the crowd like a shadow, soft, silent, unnoticed. But silence was exactly what made him noticeable to the wrong people. As he walked toward his first class, he felt eyes scanning him. The same 3 bullies from yesterday stood near the water fountain, and when Malik passed by, their conversation stopped abruptly. They didn't approach him, not yet, but their smirks followed him down the hallway. Malik kept his gaze forward. He had learned long ago that some people didn't need an invitation to stir trouble. They created it themselves. During second period, Malik sat quietly at the edge of the class. The teacher droned on about geography, pointing at maps and reading from slides. Malik listened carefully, taking neat notes. But every now and then he sensed someone staring at him. When he looked up, he caught one of the bullies from across the room watching him with narrowed eyes, pretending to doodle but never leaving Malik out of his sight. Malik looked away quickly. His heart beat a little faster, not out of fear but out of frustration. He didn't want conflict. He didn't want attention. He just wanted to study. After class ended, Malik tried to leave quickly. But the bullies moved faster. They cornered him near the lockers where there were fewer students. One stood in front of him, blocking his way, while the others spread out behind him like a formation meant to intimidate. Well, the tallest one said, if it isn't the quiet genius. His tone almost sounded playful, but his eyes held the same cold intention as yesterday. Malik tried to step around them. Excuse me. I'm trying to get to class. The shortest bully laughed. Look at him. Thinking he can ignore us again. He lightly shoved Malik's shoulder, not hard but hard enough to show dominance. Malik stayed balanced, refusing to react. Please don't touch me, he said calmly. His voice was steady, almost too steady. He didn't flinch. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't show fear. And that calmness angered them even more. Why do you always talk like some grown man? The bully in front mocked. You trying to act smart? Malik blinked. No. I'm just being respectful. The other boys snickered. Hear that? He thinks he's better than us. Malik shook his head. I never said that. But bullies didn't need reasons. They only needed excuses. The tall one leaned in closer. Listen, new kid. This is our school. You don't get to walk around like you're too good for people. Malik's eyes stayed focused. His heartbeat steady. I walk around like I want peace, he said quietly. The short bully burst into laughter. Peace? Bro, this is school, not a meditation camp. A few students nearby noticed the scene but didn't know what to do. Some walked away quickly. Some slowed down, pretending to check their phones while watching cautiously. No one wanted to get involved. Malik tightened his grip on his backpack. He knew if he reacted, if he pushed back, if he raised his voice, things would escalate. And Malik was not an escalator. He was a thinker, a listener, a planner. His father taught him to control his reactions, not feed the fire. So he tried again. Let me go, please. I don't want trouble. But the bullies didn't step aside. They smirked because they mistook gentleness for fear, patience for weakness, respect for surrender. Look at you, one sneered. Always so calm. Always so quiet. You think we won't break that calm? Malik's eyes lowered, not in defeat but in patience. Hurting me won't make you stronger, he said softly. The words hit harder than they expected. For a moment, the bullies hesitated. But pride made them push forward. The tall one shoved Malik harder this time. Malik stumbled back but didn't fall. Students around them gasped. Malik straightened himself and looked up. His eyes were different now, not angry, not scared, but sharp. His silence suddenly felt heavier, stronger, more dangerous. The bullies didn't understand that look. Not yet. But one student watching from a distance did. It was the girl from science class, the one who noticed him before. She stepped closer, her eyes filled with concern. She didn't know Malik personally, but she could feel something wrong was happening. Malik didn't fight back. He simply stood tall. But inside him something shifted. Not rage. Not fear. But a line being drawn. A quiet warning. The bullies didn't know it yet, but they had pushed Malik one step closer to the moment they would regret every decision they made. Because Malik, quiet, kind Malik, was not the boy they thought he was. And very soon they were going to learn that the hard way. Malik walked to his next class with slow, steady steps, trying to shake off the tension from the confrontation. But something inside him felt different now. Something heavy, something brewing. He wasn't angry. Anger was easy. What he felt was deeper. A quiet warning rising inside him like a storm forming behind calm clouds. The bullies didn't see it. Nobody did. They only saw a boy who walked away. But they didn't know what he was walking away toward. He slipped into the gym for fourth period, relieved to find a bit of space away from crowded hallways. The gym smelled of polished floors, basketballs, and faint echoes of laughter. Malik liked this class because it allowed him to move, breathe, and think. He sat alone on the bleachers while students chatted loudly around him. The coach blew the whistle, gathering everyone in front of him. "All right, warm up," the coach shouted. Students groaned as they began stretching, jumping, jogging. Malik joined quietly at the back of the group. He didn't try to stand out, but the way he moved, controlled, balanced, precise, caught the coach's attention. "New kid," the coach called, pointing at Malik. "You ever do any sports?" Malik hesitated. "A few." The coach squinted. "Which ones?" "Just some training," Malik replied vaguely. "My dad taught me." The coach nodded thoughtfully, not pressing further, but he took note. Later the class split into teams for drills. When it was Malik's turn to demonstrate a basic movement, a jump, a roll, a balance, he did it with surprising skill. He moved smoothly like someone who had trained for years, someone who understood discipline, not just strength. A few students noticed. "Whoa, did you see that? Where did that come from? I thought he was just the quiet kid." Even the coach raised his eyebrows. "You got experience," he said, narrowing his eyes, "don't you?" Malik shrugged gently. "I practice a lot at home." What Malik didn't say was the truth. His father was a respected community leader who believed every child should know how to defend themselves, not to fight others but to protect their dignity. Malik had spent years learning martial arts, self-control, and emotional discipline. He had trophies at home, awards he never bragged about, certificates he kept in a box because he didn't care for applause. To Malik, strength was personal, not a show for others. But the bullies didn't know. Not yet. After class, the coach noticed Malik rubbing his arm where the bullies shoved him earlier. The coach's voice softened. "Something happened?" he asked. Malik hesitated. He didn't want drama. He didn't want to complain. But he also remembered something his father always said. Hiding pain doesn't make you strong. Facing truth does. So Malik answered honestly, "Some boys keep bothering me." The coach's expression hardened. "Who?" "I don't want trouble," Malik said quickly. The coach shook his head. "Trouble already found you, son. I just need to know if I should step in." Malik looked down at his shoes. He didn't nod. He didn't shake his head. He simply stayed silent, which to the coach said enough. "I'll keep an eye out," the coach said firmly. Minutes later, during lunch, the bullies spotted Malik walking with his tray. They grinned the moment they saw him alone again. They assumed he was fragile. They assumed he was scared. They assumed he had nobody watching. They were wrong. But before anything happened, Malik walked away, choosing peace once more. This time, however, someone else noticed. The girl from science class followed him outside to the courtyard where he sat alone under a tree. "Why do you keep letting them do that?" she asked softly. Malik looked up, surprised she even approached him. "It's better than fighting," he replied. "But you can fight," she said calmly. "I saw how you moved in gym. You're not weak." Malik looked away. Being strong and acting strong are different things. She sat down beside him, not too close but close enough to show she cared. "You don't deserve what they're doing," she said, "and soon they're going to push too far." Malik sighed deeply. "I know." His eyes were calm, but there was something new behind them, something steady, grounded, almost dangerous in its silence. He wasn't planning to fight them. He wasn't planning revenge. But he wasn't planning to stay quiet either. Because the truth about Malik, the part nobody knew, is that he wasn't just the quiet kid. He was the son of a respected judge. He had connections in the community. He had a reputation in his old town for handling problems with intelligence, not fists. He had mentors who taught him leadership. He had strength the bullies could never imagine. And after today, the line between patience and action was disappearing quickly. The bullies thought Malik was alone. They thought he was weak. They thought he wouldn't push back. But they didn't know who they were dealing with. They messed with the wrong kid. And the price for that decision was coming soon. Malik hoped lunch would pass quietly, but deep down he sensed the air changing around him. The school felt different, like the atmosphere was slowly preparing for something big. The bullies were watching him more closely now, whispering to each other every time he walked by. Malik noticed. The teachers noticed. Even the girl from science class noticed. But Malik kept his calm face, the same quiet expression he always wore. He didn't want anyone to worry. He didn't want to show fear. He just wanted peace. But peace wasn't coming. Right after lunch, Malik walked into the cafeteria again to return his tray. The room was buzzing with students laughing, arguing, teasing. That loud wave of sound made Malik feel small for a moment, like he didn't belong in that noise. He placed his tray on the counter and turned to leave, but the bullies stepped right into his path. They trapped him between the tables. One in front, two behind. No escape. Students nearby noticed and stopped talking. The noise faded slowly as heads turned toward Malik. Some people pulled out their phones, not to help but to watch. That was the problem with crowds. They became an audience before they became human. The tallest bully grinned. "Hey Malik," he said in a loud voice, "you been avoiding us?" Malik stayed calm. "I'm trying to get to class." The short one laughed. "Class can wait. We're having fun." Malik exhaled slowly, trying to steady his nerves. "Please move. I don't want trouble." The bully behind him snorted. "Man, why do you talk like some old man? Can't you just act normal?" Another voice chimed in. "Look at him. Standing here like he's too good for us." Malik shook his head, keeping his voice soft. "I never said that." But the more calmly he talked, the more irritated they became. Calmness made them feel powerless, and bullies hated feeling powerless. The tall one suddenly grabbed Malik's backpack and yanked it off his shoulder, letting it drop to the floor with a loud thud. Students gasped. Some recorded. Some whispered. Some froze. Malik stared at his bag on the floor. His notebook scattered. His pencil case cracked open. A familiar ache hit his chest, not from fear but from disappointment. He had hoped the bullying would stop. He had hoped they would grow tired. But they were only getting bolder. The bullies smirked, expecting him to panic or get angry. But all Malik did was kneel down quietly and start picking up his belongings with steady hands. His calmness confused them again. "What are you doing?" one bully scoffed. "Fight back." Malik didn't respond. He placed his books back into the bag carefully, his breathing even, his movements slow. His silence made them furious. The tall one stepped on Malik's notebook, crushing it under his shoe. A small tremor ran through Malik's fingers, but he still didn't raise his voice. He simply lifted the notebook gently from under the shoe, dusted it off and placed it in his bag. Students around them stared in shock. Who was this boy? Why wasn't he reacting? One girl whispered, "He's too calm. Something's wrong with this picture." Another said, "He's going to snap one day." But Malik wasn't going to snap, not like they expected. His strength wasn't wild. It was controlled. And the bullies had no idea what controlled strength could do. Suddenly, the short bully shoved Malik's shoulder hard enough to make him lose balance. Malik stumbled but caught himself, brushing off his shirt. A voice from the crowd yelled, "Leave him alone." Everyone turned. It was the girl from science class. She marched forward, her face red with anger. "What is wrong with you guys? He didn't do anything." The bullies laughed. "Oh look, he's got a bodyguard now." Malik stood up slowly. "Please," he whispered to her, "don't get involved." But she shook her head. "No. They need to stop." The tall bully smirked. "Or what?" Before she could answer, the cafeteria doors swung open, and Coach Harris stepped inside. His eyes scanned the room, instantly locking onto the scene. His face hardened like stone. "What is going on here?" he shouted, marching forward. The bullies stepped back, startled. The students hurried away, pretending they hadn't been filming or watching. Malik lowered his gaze, not wanting drama. But the coach wasn't having it. "You three," Coach Harris barked, pointing directly at the bullies' office. "Now." The bullies tried to protest. "Coach, it's not." "I said now," the coach thundered. They walked away reluctantly, but not before giving Malik one last glare, one that promised things were far from over. As the cafeteria emptied out, the girl looked at Malik with concern. "Are you okay?" Malik nodded. "Thank you. But this isn't over." She frowned. "What do you mean?" Malik picked up his backpack and looked out the cafeteria window. Because for the first time he felt something rising inside him, a truth he could no longer hide. They think I'm just a quiet kid, Malik said softly, but they don't know who I really am. So, they were going to find out. Very, very soon. Malik walked out of the cafeteria with slow, controlled steps, but inside him something powerful had shifted. The bullies didn't realize it yet, but they had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. They thought they had embarrassed him. They thought they had won. But Malik wasn't shaking and he wasn't scared. He felt something different, clarity. A calm determination that came only when a person finally decided, enough is enough. He walked down the hallway still hearing faint whispers behind him. Why didn't he fight back? He's too calm, it's creepy. He's hiding something. But Malik didn't react. He went straight to his next class and sat down in his usual quiet spot. The girl from science class sat 2 rows behind him, worried. She watched the back of his head, noticing how still he was, how controlled his breathing was. He wasn't defeated. He was deciding something. The bell rang and Malik's phone buzzed. He rarely checked messages during school, but this one made him pause. It was from his father. How is your first week going? Everything all right? Malik stared at the screen for a long moment. His father was a respected judge, known for fairness, strength, and wisdom. People rarely crossed him, and definitely never crossed his family. Malik typed a message, then deleted it. He typed again, then deleted it again. He didn't want to worry his father. He didn't want to look weak. He didn't want to cause problems. But then he remembered the coach's words. Trouble already found you. So Malik took a deep breath, and told the truth. Some boys are bothering me. It's getting worse. He stared at the message for a moment and then pressed send. His father replied almost instantly. Names? Malik sighed. Dad, he whispered to himself, it's not that simple. He didn't want his father to storm into the school. He didn't want courtrooms, lawyers, or dramatic outcomes. He wanted the bullying to stop. He wanted justice that didn't destroy anyone's life. But before he could reply, another message came. Don't worry. I'm not coming there. I just want you to handle it the way I taught you. Calm, strong, smart. You're not alone. Malik breathed out. His father understood him in a way nobody else did. He replied, I'll handle it. But how? Malik wasn't going to fight with fists. He wasn't going to scream or insult. He had a different plan, one with more strength than violence could ever offer. When school let out that afternoon, Malik walked toward the front gate. The sun was bright, the air warm, and students hurried past him to catch rides or buses. Everything felt normal. Until he saw them. The 3 bullies standing by the bike racks waiting for him. Their expressions were sharper now, frustrated, insulted, challenged. They stepped forward before Malik could leave. Thought you'd hide behind coach today? The tall one mocked. Malik stayed calm. I didn't hide. The short bully scoffed. You run to teachers because you're scared? Malik shook his head. I didn't report you. The bullies exchanged confused looks. That made them even more irritated. They pushed closer, forming a tight circle around him. You think you're smart, huh? You think you're better than us? You think you can make us look stupid? Malik met their eyes one by one. His voice wasn't loud. It wasn't shaky. It wasn't angry. It was calm, steady, and unbelievably firm. I think, Malik said slowly, that you made a mistake today. The bullies frowned. What mistake? One demanded. Malik tightened the straps of his backpack. You judged me without knowing who I am. The tall bully smirked. And who are you? Malik hesitated only for a second. Then he spoke, not bragging, not shouting, just stating a quiet truth that hit harder than a punch. My father is Judge Richard Williams. All 3 bullies froze. Their smirks vanished instantly. Judge Williams wasn't just a judge. He was the judge in their city. The man known for handling serious cases. The man known for fairness and strictness. The man people respected and feared. The tall bully's throat tightened. And no way, he stuttered. Malik nodded gently. Yes. And he knows everything now. The boys' faces drained of color. I didn't tell him your names, Malik continued softly. But if things continue, I will. Their expressions shifted from arrogance to fear. Malik stepped forward, no longer trapped, his voice still gentle but powerful enough to make their knees shake. I don't want to ruin anyone's life, he said. I don't want fights. I don't want trouble. I just want the bullying to stop. The bullies swallowed hard, staring at him like they were seeing him for the first time. Malik ended with a message so calm, so clear, and so heavy that it made all 3 boys step back. I walked away because I chose peace, not because I was afraid. And with that, he walked past them, leaving them stunned, shaken, and terrified of what might come next. They had messed with the wrong kid, and their price was only beginning. The next morning, the whole school felt strangely alert, as if everyone sensed something important was about to unfold. The news of yesterday's cafeteria incident had spread faster than gossip ever had before. Students whispered in hallways, teachers exchanged uneasy glances, and even staff members paused when Malik walked by, seeing him differently now. Malik didn't walk with pride or with fear. He walked the same way he always did, quiet, steady, calm, but now the silence around him carried a different weight. People weren't ignoring him anymore. They were watching him. Respect mixed with curiosity flowed behind every glance. But the bullies? They walked into school a completely different way. Their shoulders were stiff. Their eyes darted around the hall. Their jokes were gone. Their confidence had cracked. They looked like boys who had just realized they weren't as powerful as they once believed. They had spent the entire night not sleeping, imagining all the possible consequences of messing with a judge's son. Their parents were furious, confused, and terrified. And the school was about to become even more intense. When first period ended, the loudspeaker crackled through the hall. "Malik Williams, please come to the principal's office." Immediately. The bullies flinched when they heard his last name, Williams. Every student nearby turned and stared at Malik with wide eyes. Nobody wanted to imagine what was happening behind those doors. Malik walked slowly to the office. The hall quieted as he passed by. Some students nodded at him. Others stepped aside respectfully. A few even whispered, "He's the judge's kid. I heard the school's facing trouble now. Did you see the videos? It was bad." Malik reached the office, took a breath, and stepped in. Inside sat the principal, the vice principal, Coach Harris, and the school counselor, all waiting for him. Their faces looked serious but not angry, not disappointed, more concerned and respectful. "Malik," the principal said gently, "please sit." Malik sat down quietly. "First," the principal continued, "we want to apologize for what you've been going through. We have reviewed several videos and we are taking this very seriously." Malik nodded, keeping his hands folded calmly in his lap. The counselor leaned forward. "You didn't deserve what happened. You handled yourself with incredible grace and maturity." Malik lowered his eyes. "I just didn't want things to get out of control." The principal sighed. "Unfortunately, things have gotten out of control. Parents have been calling. Staff members are furious the bullying wasn't addressed earlier. And the community," he paused, "has already started asking questions." The principal placed a folder on the table. Malik recognized the seal on it, his father's office. "Your father contacted us this morning," the principal said slowly. "He is not angry. He is not demanding punishment. But he is insisting on one thing, that you be protected." Malik's breath caught in his throat. His father wasn't coming to threaten anyone. He wanted safety, justice, fairness. The principal continued, "Before we call the students who bullied you, we want to hear your side. In your own words." Malik hesitated. He didn't want revenge. He didn't want to destroy the boys' futures. He simply wanted the bullying to stop. So he explained things clearly and calmly, the hallway shoves, the locker incident, the cafeteria humiliation. His voice didn't shake once. He didn't exaggerate. He didn't yell. He just told the truth. When he finished, the room stayed silent for a moment. Finally, Coach Harris spoke, his voice full of pride. "You handled yourself like a man, Malik. Better than many adults would." Then one by one the bullies were brought in. Their shoulders slumped. Their heads down. Their faces pale. They couldn't even look at Malik. The principal didn't raise his voice. He didn't insult them. But his words were sharp. "We have your actions on camera. We have witness statements. And we know who Malik's father is, not because Malik bragged, but because he asked us to protect you from consequences far worse than school discipline." The boys looked shocked. They expected anger, revenge, or punishment. But Malik had protected them without even saying a word. The vice principal leaned closer. "Do you understand how lucky you are that Malik chose respect instead of retaliation? How lucky you are that he didn't let his father file formal charges?" Their faces crumpled as reality sank in. Malik looked at them calmly. "I didn't want to ruin your lives," he said softly. "I just wanted you to stop." The room fell silent. The boys swallowed hard. For the first time one of them whispered, "We're sorry." The others followed, voices shaky, embarrassed, full of fear. "We're really sorry, Malik. We didn't know anything." Malik nodded slowly. "Now you do." The principal explained their punishment. Suspensions, counseling, parent conferences, and community service. It was serious, but nowhere near what Malik could have insisted on. When everyone left the room except him, the counselor stayed behind. "You know," she said softly, "nobody expected you to handle this the way you did. You changed the entire situation with your calmness." Malik looked out the window quietly. "My father always said, real strength doesn't need to shout." The counselor smiled. "It seems you listened well." As Malik stepped out of the office, the school didn't feel the same anymore. He wasn't invisible. He wasn't a target. He wasn't the quiet boy people ignored. He was Malik Williams, and the whole school finally understood who he really was. Malik stepped out of the principal's office feeling lighter, yet heavier at the same time. The air in the hallway had changed. Students who used to walk past him without noticing now paused, watching him with a mixture of guilt, respect, and curiosity. Whispers followed him, but not the cruel kind. These whispers carried awe. "That's the judge's son. He didn't even get them in serious trouble. He's actually kind. He handled it better than most adults I know." But Malik didn't bask in the attention. He didn't want to be a school celebrity. He wanted peace, simple, ordinary peace. A chance to breathe without being watched. Meanwhile, the bullies were nowhere near the swaggering boys they had been just days ago. They sat in the hallway outside the office, shoulders slumped, eyes red. Their reputations had shattered. Their pride had been crushed not by force but by truth. Their parents had been called. Their futures were suddenly uncertain. And their biggest shock wasn't the suspension. It wasn't the mandatory counseling. It wasn't the videos shared among students. It was Malik. The quiet kid they underestimated had turned out to be stronger, calmer, and more respected than any of them had imagined. And now the whole school knew it. Malik headed toward his locker. When he opened it, he noticed something that made him pause. The notebook that the bully had stomped on yesterday, the one that had been wrinkled and dirty, was now sitting neatly inside, flattened, cleaned, and taped carefully at the corners. A small sticky note was attached to it. "We're sorry. Truly. From all three of us." Malik stared at the note for a long moment. He could have ignored it. He could have thrown it away. He could have laughed or posted it online to embarrass them. But he didn't. He removed the note gently and set it aside, not tearing it, not crumpling it, just understanding it. Because forgiveness wasn't weakness. It was strength, quiet, powerful strength. As he walked to his next class, something unexpected happened. Students moved out of his way, not out of fear but out of respect. A few nodded at him. A few smiled softly. Some whispered, "That's Malik," with admiration instead of mockery. Even teachers treated him differently, greeting him warmly or placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. Not because of his father. Not because of the incident. But because of the way he handled everything, with grace that made people rethink their assumptions. During the afternoon assembly, something remarkable occurred. The principal stepped up to the microphone and cleared his throat, the auditorium buzzing with whispers. "Before we begin," he said, "I would like to acknowledge a student who demonstrated extraordinary maturity, strength, and patience this week." Students looked around. "He showed us that true courage is not loud. It is calm. It is steady. It is respectful." The principal paused. "And that student is Malik Williams." The entire auditorium turned toward him. For a moment, Malik's heart stopped. He wasn't expecting this. He didn't want attention. He wanted peace. But the applause came anyway. Not mocking. Not sarcastic. Respectful. Grateful. Even teachers clapped with genuine admiration. Malik looked down, embarrassed but touched. The girl from science class, sitting a few rows away, smiled at him proudly. But while the applause grew, something else was happening in the back of the auditorium. The three bullies sat together, pale and humbled. Their faces burned with shame. They couldn't even look up. They knew the school saw everything now, not just their cruelty but Malik's strength. After the assembly, while students filtered out, the bullies approached Malik slowly. Their steps were hesitant, their heads bowed like boys who finally understood the weight of their actions. The tall one spoke first, his voice shaking. "Malik, we're sorry. For everything. For real." The second one added, "You could have ruined us, but you didn't." The third whispered, "Thank you, for not hating us." Malik looked into their eyes, searching for sincerity, and he found it. These weren't excuses. These weren't lies. These were boys who had been humbled deeply, changed by the consequences they brought upon themselves. So Malik nodded gently. "I accept your apology. But just remember something." They swallowed hard. "What?" Malik's voice remained soft but powerful. You weren't paying the price because of my father. You were paying the price because of your choices. Learn from them." The boys nodded gratefully, relieved and ashamed. As Malik walked away, the girl from science class hurried up beside him. "You're amazing," she said softly. Malik smiled faintly. "I'm just trying to be fair." "No," she said, shaking her head. "You're more than fair. You're strong. In a way most people aren't." Malik didn't respond. He didn't need to. Because today wasn't about him proving anything. It was about the school realizing what real strength looked like. And understanding that the quietest kid in the room was sometimes the strongest of all. The next day began quietly, almost too quietly. A soft breeze moved across the school courtyard. Students walked in pairs and groups, but something felt different. Something calmer, something wiser. It was as if the entire school had taken a deep breath overnight and decided to start fresh. Teachers smiled warmer. Students spoke softer. Even the hall monitors seemed more patient. And in the center of all this new calm was Malik. He walked through the gates with the same steady steps he always had. But this time he wasn't invisible. People didn't stare at him because of fear or gossip. They looked at him with respect. They nodded, greeted him, or simply made space for him as he passed. Not because of his father. Not because of the incident. But because Malik had become a silent reminder of strength, dignity, and self-control. Even those who didn't know him personally felt it. The cafeteria workers smiled at him. The janitor gave him a thumbs up. Students who once ignored him now whispered, "Morning, Malik," with genuine friendliness. But today wasn't about attention. It wasn't about being a hero. It wasn't about what happened with the bullies. Today was about closure. During second period, the principal made an unexpected announcement. "Students and staff, please gather in the courtyard at 11 a.m. for an important message." Whispers shot through every hallway. Another assembly? Is this about Malik? What's happening now? At 11 a.m., everyone gathered under the bright sky. The principal stood on a small platform, the bullies' parents in the front row, teachers on both sides, and dozens of students crowding around. Malik stood near the back, not wanting to be the center of anything. But life had a strange way of pulling him forward. The principal raised the microphone. "Yesterday we witnessed something that rarely happens in a school environment. A student showing extraordinary maturity and kindness in the face of bullying." He paused before continuing. "Today that student asked to speak. Not to accuse. Not to shame. But to share something important." Heads turned. A wave of whispers washed through the crowd. Malik froze. He hadn't asked to speak. But the principal smiled gently at him. "Malik, if you're comfortable, we'd like to hear you." Students stepped aside, creating a path for him. Malik's heart pounded. He didn't want a stage. He didn't want applause. But perhaps, this moment wasn't about him. Maybe it was bigger. He took a deep breath and stepped forward. When he reached the front, he didn't stand tall like a leader or proud like a conqueror. He stood like himself, calm, steady, humble. He looked at the crowd and spoke with a soft voice, but the courtyard fell silent, every ear waiting. "I never wanted trouble," he began. "And I didn't want anyone to get hurt. I just wanted peace." His words carried across the crowd like a breeze. "The boys who bullied me, they made mistakes. But that doesn't make them bad people. It just means they need to learn. We all do. I've made mistakes too. We all have." The bullies stood stiffly beside their parents, tears in their eyes. Malik continued, "I don't want people to treat me differently because of my dad or because of what happened. I want people to treat each other with respect because it's the right thing. Not because they're scared of consequences." A teacher wiped a tear. Some students looked down at their shoes. Malik finished with the words that truly changed everything. "Forgiveness isn't weakness. It's choosing to move forward. I'm moving forward, and I hope everyone else does too." The courtyard stayed silent for a moment that felt like a heartbeat holding its breath. Then applause rolled across the crowd, slowly at first, then louder, growing into a wave of admiration. It wasn't applause for a hero. It wasn't applause for victory. It was applause for wisdom. Something shifted deeply in that moment, an understanding, a unity. The bullies stepped forward next. Their voices shaky, their eyes wet, they apologized publicly, honestly. Their parents joined them, promising to help their sons grow, learn, and change. Nobody gloated. Nobody mocked them. Because Malik had set a different tone. When the assembly ended, the girl from science class approached Malik with a bright smile. "You changed the whole school," she whispered. Malik shook his head. "No. We changed it together." She grinned. "Maybe. But you started it." He gave a small smile, the kind that showed peace had finally settled in his heart. As Malik walked across the courtyard, surrounded by support instead of isolation, he felt something he hadn't expected. He didn't feel like the quiet kid anymore. He didn't feel like the judge's son. He didn't feel like a victim. He felt powerful. Not the loud kind of power. Not the violent kind. Not the fear-driven kind. A different kind. Quiet, steady, strong enough to change lives. The bullies had messed with the wrong kid. And the price they paid wasn't punishment, it was transformation. But the biggest change wasn't in them. It was in the school. In the atmosphere. In Malik himself. From that day on, nobody underestimated him again. Because everyone had learned one unforgettable truth. Sometimes the quietest kid in the room is the strongest one of all.